training sessions for those of us that are working with the terrorist communities. Our hope is that through this, all three of our terraces will be the most efficient, most effective, most loving, most caring communities in the Upper Valley. I want us to be able together, working together, build a great community amongst ourselves. And so I'm hoping that through these trainings, we can do just that. So this is our first one, and we're going to end up with about 7 sessions. Um, and then there's going to be some interactions between your leadership and yourselves. And then I'm going to be getting together with the leadership a couple times a month just to make sure that we're all on the same page and doing the same work. So with that being said, who am I? Who is Mick Byers? Some of you do know me, but there's many who do not. I have been a geriatric nurse with an emphasis in dementia care for over 25 years. I've been managing dementia communities for the last 15 years. Um, and what I do is I incorporate the philosophies and strategies of the best friends approach to care. And the essence of the philosophy of that is that we treat our residents as if they are our best friends. And it's not a cliche. It's not, it is what it is. When I say we treat them like they are our best friends, they become our friends and we become their friends. And through that relationship, we give them the best life that they possibly can have. And for those of you that can, look up the best friends approach to care because you're going to find some gems mixed in there. And then I also have learned from the Alzheimer's Association's habilitation therapy. And the essence of that is that we focus on their strengths, not on their weaknesses. We focus on what they still have, not on what they have lost. And we allow them as much independence and as much autonomy as we possibly can give them, keeping them safe and keeping them comfortable, but allowing them to explore, allowing them to use that stimulation that's all around them to enjoy their life. And that's what this is all about. It's about them enjoying their life, being safe, being comfortable, and enjoying their life. And the last training that I had was with Teepa Snow's Positive Approach to Care. And they have made a name for themselves worldwide. I'm not going to go too deep into what their philosophy is. You can look up a gazillion of their videos on YouTube. Just type in Teepa Snow and you'll get a whole bunch of stuff there. So anyway, that's who I am. That's what I've been doing for the last 25 years. And here's our plan for the next few sessions. Today, once we get past these introductions, we're going to be talking about communication. The next session is going to be their environment and how that affects their mood, how it affects them physically and emotionally. And the third session is going to be on the care that we give, how we give that care, what is the best practice in the care that we're giving. And the fourth session is going to be on activities. And that's not just the activity department. That's everything from the ADLs that we do with them to how they spend their time privately to how we can engage them throughout the day. The fifth session is going to be what this whole thing is all about, is understanding the behavioral symptoms. What is causing them to behave the way that they behave? And then we're going to learn how to be detectives in that department. Session 6 is going to be caring for the families, because Alzheimer's and all the dementias do not just affect a person. They affect the entire family. And so we're going to work on how we help the family dynamics in going through this journey. And then in that same session, we're going to talk about ourselves, our self-care, especially for those of you that are resident assistants. This is really, really hard work. It's hard work emotionally, and it's hard work physically. There was a study done a few years ago on permanent damage to the back. And the number one cause of permanent back damage, it was not from construction work. It was not from professional athletes. It was not from any military. The number one career that causes back damage is the resident assistant. You guys have hard work. And we're going to talk about that. And then the last session is going to be empathy for the dementia resident. We're going to talk about the different losses that they experience and how we can help them with any one of those losses. So that's our plan. So let's get right into communication. Think about how we build our friendships and how we build our love relationships and even our family relationships. What do we do to make those healthy? Well, relationships begin with healthy, open, honest communication. There's no way around that. You can't have a healthy relationship without having good communication. And honest communication, when we do it right, it builds trust. And that trust, that healthy trust, creates a strong friendship. It creates a strong relationship. And think about the relationships that you lost. It's 90% of them, I would say, is lost because first you have lost communication. You have lost the ability to communicate with one another, which led to a loss of trust. And then the relationship is broken. So it all starts with healthy, open communication. That same is true with our residents. It begins with healthy, open, honest communication. That honest communication builds trust between that resident and you. And before you know it, you have a healthy, strong friendship with one another. So there's three basic reasons why we communicate with our friends. We help them we help our friends through communication by giving them the kind of direction that they need through their life. This awful disease prevents them from doing things on their own. They need our help. They need us there. And that's why we're there to help guide them through their days. Everything from the morning ADLs, the shower, getting dressed, getting out to eat, all the way through the activities throughout the day, and then finishing up at night. It's all about communication, right communication. That's one reason why we want to communicate with them. The second is to enhance our relationship with our friends. And I say this to our staff all the time. Anytime you have that downtime, anytime you have that free time, use it to build those relationships. Just hang out with them. Find out more about them. Find out about what they love and what they hate and what their experiences in life were. Just use that time to build that bond. And then the third reason for communication is a life preserver. It's to de-escalate heightened emotions. And let's face it, we're handling that every day on a daily basis from one person or another as their emotions start to heighten. It's our job to lower the temperature. I'm going to tell you a little story from a few years back. I was walking down the hallway and I heard behind the door, "No, get out of here, get out of here, leave me alone." And it was, really loud and it sounded like something's going on. So I opened the door and God bless those RAs. One was in the front trying to pull this resident up while the second aide was on the bed trying to push her up from behind. They were doing this because my friend had soiled herself and she needed to get into the bathroom. So they were trying to force her into the bathroom. So the first thing I did when I opened that door and saw that was I pointed to the one in front and said, "You get out of here right now." And so she left. And then I knew that the woman loved music. So I put some music on and I sat down next to her and we just chatted for a few minutes, talking about some things that I knew she loved to talk about. And then as her adrenaline started to slow down, that's when I could make that suggestion. And I said, "Judith, why doesn't Haven bring you into the bathroom, let you get washed up. And while you're doing that, I'm going to fix us up some good breakfast and we'll have breakfast together. And she went right along with her, and problem was solved. So, and we're going to be talking about doing things like this right through these sessions so that you understand how to de-escalate those heightened emotions. It saves you a lot of time, it saves you a lot of stress, and it just makes life good for everyone involved. So here's an important thing to remember. If what you are doing is not working, stop. Stop it right then and there. Um, an illustration to that is if you have, if you're watching this with someone else, gather with a partner and put your hands against each other and then just try to push back and forth. If you're by yourself, just do this. This is what you are doing when you're trying to do something that the resident is not willing to do. So you're on one side going, you're going to take a shower. And they're on the other side saying, no, I'm not going to take a shower. And then all you have is this deep friction between the two of you. And it ends up being a battle of wills. It ends up being not about loving them and caring for them, but about your ego, about your pride. You don't want to give up. You don't want to feel like you're losing. So this is what I'm telling you. Just stop. Stop what you're doing. And then back off. Give our friend time to let that adrenaline slow. Give them time to let their emotions calm down. And then try a different approach or even try a different face. If there's someone else that connects well with them, then by all means, let them do that. But don't continue working at something that's not working. It's just it does nothing but cause pain, cause frustration. No good comes from it. And here's the thing to remember too. Even though they have lousy memories in terms of what they just did or what was just said, they have what I call an emotional memory. In other words, the next day they may not remember what you did, but they remember that you made them feel uncomfortable. And the same is true the other way. If what you're doing is pleasing them, then they're going to remember that. They're not going to remember what you did, but they're going to remember how you made them feel. So I'm going to give you some tips on communicating with them. These are just little tidbits, little proverbs, little tips. First, recognize what you are dealing with. You are dealing with a progressive disease. And what I mean by that is that it's always changing. It is constantly changing. So what is working this week and you feel good about it and it's working great and you got a really good rhythm between you and your friend, and then suddenly next week it doesn't work anymore. And so you have to start all over again, finding a different strategy. And that's just the way this is with this disease. So recognize what you're dealing with. And when you need to communicate with them, avoid distractions. Don't try to have that serious conversation with them in the middle of the dining room. Find that quiet space where they can avoid distractions. They can focus on what you're trying to tell them. And then speak clearly and naturally. Speak in a warm tone and a calm voice. These are just really simple things that we can learn to do, and it goes a long way in letting them feel relaxed with you. And that's what all of this body language stuff that I'm talking about is about. It's about making them feel comfortable with you and with your friendship. And refer to all people in your conversation, refer to everyone and everything without using pronouns. Pronouns confuse our friends. They don't gather when we say it, they, them, he, she. They don't know who you're talking about many times. So just avoid using those pronouns altogether and then talk about one thing at a time. You can't bounce from one subject to another. Keep it focused on that one thing that you need to talk about. And as I was saying before, use nonverbal cues, direct eye contact, lean forward into them, Smile all the time. Keep that smile. Keep that bright look and lean into them. When I say lean into them, I want them to look at you as they're talking and have them see that you are on the edge of your seat, waiting for the next thing for them to say. Like your whole world is focused on them. That's the kind of body language that we need to give them. And I can't stress this enough. Don't argue. No one has ever won an argument with a dementia resident. Do not try to use logic to try to conform their behavior. It's not going to work. If they say the sky is purple, then go with it. The sky is purple. I had someone a few years ago who was telling all the staff that his mother and father were coming to pick him up, and some well-meaning aide went up to him and said, "Doug, you're 93 years old. So your parents, they would have to be like 120 years old. So, Doug, your mom and dad are dead." What do you think was the thing that he heard out of that conversation? His mom and dad had died. And so he spent the next 2 hours in a frantic panic, pacing up and down the hallways, telling everybody that his mother and father had just died. So don't try to argue. Don't try to use logic. Just embrace whatever reality they're at right then, and then bring them emotionally to a positive place in that reality. Bring a lot of patience with you because you're going to be talking in loops with all of these folks, and you're going to be doing the same things over and over again. You're going to be saying the same things over and over again. That's what life in a dementia community is, and you just have to embrace that and understand that every day is different. What works one day may not work the next day. It's all an adventure. And in one respect, you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. And in another respect, everything changes every day. So it's an adventure. Here's an important one. Put yourself in their shoes. Try to understand what they are experiencing, what they're feeling, what is their emotions in this crisis that they have. Imagine a woman frantically going from room to room looking for her purse because her purse is missing. Now, how do you put yourself in their shoes with that? Think about what you would experience if you suddenly couldn't find your phone anymore. That's what she's experiencing. Because in their day, the purse was their life. Everything that they needed in that daily life was in that purse, and that's how she still feels. So that's just one short example of putting yourself in their shoes. When they're having an emotional moment, try to imagine what it is that they're going through and then meet them there. Meet them in their reality. Don't try to change their reality. Don't try to convince them that it's not happening. Use that reality and bring them back to a positive emotion. I had a woman who used to, on a daily basis, look for her husband. And what I used to do to diffuse that was I would ask her, how their marriage was. And then from the marriage, I had them talk about the farm that they lived on. And then that got her just reminiscing, and she forgot all about the anxiety. It does work really well. And I can't stress this enough either. Don't take their words personally. Remember, they have no filter. So they no longer know what is appropriate and what isn't appropriate. I'm told on a weekly basis that I need to go on a diet. And they're right. I don't take that personally. It doesn't offend me. It's just who they are and it's how they live at this point. So there's many things that they say that might be offensive to you. Might even be some swear words. There might be some racist remarks. You just have to accept that it's the disease that's doing that. It's not that person. If that person was in their right mind, they would not be talking to you like that. So you got to give them a lot of grace in the words that they share. And again, understand that every day is different. What works one day may not work the next. I can't say that enough. You just have to roll with every day. So behind all of this communication that I'm talking about, we need to know who our resident is. We need to know them frontwards and backwards, their past and their present. Do they prefer showers or baths? Are they a morning person or a night owl? What is their favorite activity? What makes up their daily routine? How do they get through each day? What's their favorite food, their favorite drink, music, movie, hobby, whatever it is that sparks their interest? We need to know what that is. Are they outgoing or are they shy? Do they enjoy group activity or do they keep to themselves? Each one of us is different. Um, some of us are shy. Some of us don't like to be around a lot of people, and then others of us like to be the center of the party. They enjoy that hoopla. Everybody's different, and then you find out what their past is like. Were they raised in the country, the suburbs, the inner city? What type of career did they have? How about family life, a spouse, children? So do a lot of digging. Talk to the families when they're around. Ask them what life was like with mom or dad, and get to know a bigger picture of who this person is. When we base our care on what we know about our friends, they start to feel good about themselves. They start to feel good about their lives. They feel more independent. They feel respected. They're more likely to cooperate. All of those things are really important. You get to know your resident and then you learn how to communicate well with that resident. And I will tell you, you're going to have some very cooperative um, community. So let's brainstorm a few behavioral issues. One, Joe needs a shower, but continues to refuse, saying, I took one this morning. Jill needs to be toileted, but gets combative every time someone tries. Diane needs to sit down for meals in the dining room, but is antsy and won't sit for very long, so she rarely eats a full meal. Jim is tired after supper. Every night he falls asleep in his chair, but he refuses to lay down in bed. Now, those aren't just something that I made up. These are actual residents that I've had these issues with. And so we're going to talk in a minute about what we can do about those. So when you have those kind of challenges, you want to ask a few questions to yourself. You want to ask yourself why your friend is behaving this way and try to figure out what the root cause of each one of those behaviors is. Then you want to ask yourself if this is really a problem. And what I mean by that is some things are just quirky, but they're not a problem. I had a woman in my community that used to go out and grab rocks from outside and bring them inside and set them on her windowsill. And this was freaking out some of the staff for whatever reason. And they would try to stop her from doing it. And I told them, but she's not hurting anything. She's bringing rocks in from outside and it's bringing her joy. It's bringing her, it's bringing her some pleasure. So ask yourself if this is really a problem. And then another big question, ask yourself how we can meet their need without a confrontation. Because too many times in a community, in a dementia community, when staff is not well trained, when staff is task oriented rather than trying to take care of the person, they want to get that job done. And so they don't think about meeting the need without a confrontation. But if you pay attention to that, you can meet all of their needs without having that battle of wills. And then ask yourself who has the closest relationship with this friend. Maybe you can use them to solve this problem. And then always brainstorm as a team on how you can solve these dilemmas. Don't be shy about reaching out to each other, reaching out to one another, because each one of you has your own perspective on what this problem is. And together, you can solve these problems. So let's go back. I'll tell you how I solved some of these problems. Joe needs a shower, but he continues to refuse, saying, I took one this morning. So this particular individual was afraid of showers. So you can still get someone clean without having to bring them into a traumatic area. And you think about it, bringing someone into a small bathroom with all these acoustics, and you got voices coming at you and that are echoing at you. Um, that alone is very distressing. And then to have the beating stimulation of a shower over you can be a bit overwhelming for some folks too. So, in short, showers don't work for some people, and bedside baths do, is especially if you make it more like a spa for them, especially the ladies. If you get some aromatherapy going, um, doing some massage with it, it all works out really well. And then you continue to respect their um, modesty as you do this. And you can thoroughly wash the whole body and get the same thing accomplished that you were trying to do with the shower. And they walk away feeling clean, and it works. So that's how we solve that problem. And then the second one, Jill needs to be toileted but gets combative every time someone tries. And this one can be a challenge, and it's baby steps with this one. It doesn't get solved overnight, and it has to do with relationships. She has to be able to trust who's bringing her in there. So you build the relationship. When the relationship gets to be a moment of trust, then they can bring her into the bathroom, maybe not for toileting, but for other reasons. So she feels again like she can trust you at that point. And then it's an evolution to having that one person be able to bring them to the bathroom and get it all done. Some of these takes time, and that's one of them. Diane needs to sit down for meals in the dining room, but is antsy and won't sit long, so she rarely eats a full meal. Now, with her, what we did is instead of giving her a full meal, we gave her six small meals throughout the day, and we had them um, as finger foods. So she can walk by the table, grab a few things, bite them, and then go on her antsy way. And by the time we were done with this program, she was back to eating a regular meal again. But you just have to adapt to where they're at. Last one, Jim is tired. After supper every night, he falls asleep in his chair, but he refuses to lay down in bed. We got lucky with this one. Um, so this was happening where uh, he'd wake up with a stiff neck from sleeping for hours in the chair. What we did is when it got to bedtime and he was sleeping in the chair, we didn't try to get him into the bed. We escorted him into the bathroom so that he could use the bathroom. And then when he came out of the bathroom, we pulled the bed back and he just naturally went into the bed. And that, again, I said, we just got lucky with that one. We didn't really plan it, but it worked that way. And so that's how we ended up getting him back into that routine of going into bed at night. And once he hit the bed, he felt, this is great kind of feeling. So that worked out really well. But I want you guys to look over all of these and think about how you would solve each one of these problems. If you have pen and paper, write these down because I'm going to be going over this with the leaders when I get together with them. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you would solve each one of these problems as well. So, for homework for you, I have two titles from Teepa Snow that I'd like you to look up on YouTube. They're both very powerful, very engaging videos. The first one, if you type in challenging behavior, Teepa Snow, you'll get that first one, and that's a classic. And then the second one is Teepa Snow 10 Ways to De-Escalate a Crisis. I would love for you to watch both of those before the next session, just so you get an idea of how important good communication is. And if you have any questions that you'd like to have me talk about, um, this is my email, 80partners@gmx.com, and I will respond to any questions that you might have. And again, after each one of these sessions the following week, I'm going to be meeting with the leadership and we're going to be talking about what the challenges with, um, in this case, challenges with communication would be with each one of the staff members. And we'll try to work it out together as a team. And I'm going to give them the link to the Zoom meeting. And hopefully, some of you will have time to join in on these leadership sessions as well, so that we can actually all learn from one another. I'm looking forward to the weeks ahead. And then once we go through all the sessions, I'm going to create a small web page so that we can always have access to all of these videos. I'm looking forward to meeting and working with each one of you. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.